Monty, well, what a weekend of sport we got in store, mate. We've got the big Super Rugby final at 7 o'clock, of course, tomorrow night. But before that, must take care of business away the Titans. And as soon as you say the word the Titans, mate, my memory goes back to that game at Mount Smart, and I think, God damn that result.
Revenge, mate. A return of service is needed. You know, when they came here very desperate off the back, I think 6 losses yet to get their first points for the season, and they played pretty well. They've got a lot of strike power, there's no doubt about it, but, you know, when they're struggling at the bottom of the table, they've only had 3 wins. It's one of those games where you think you've got to go over and you've got to do a job if you're serious about getting into that 8 this year.
Look, we started off like a rocket again in that game, didn't we? And then they got an easy try, got themselves back into it, and it was one of those frustrating ones during that run of losses where, because, you know, you just kind of felt all of those games we should be winning them, and we didn't. So what's going to be the difference tomorrow?
Yeah, it's got to be, look, the key with this side is their speed, out and out attack. You know, you've got a lot of weapons out there. Alofiana Khan, Pereira, Keanu Kinney, Jojo Fafita. A lot of these guys, like in terms of having open field running, last week against the Tigers, there was 9 line breaks at 2, but yet they weren't able to finish off and score. So no doubt through this week, they would have been told and been working on executing and making sure that then when they do make the line breaks, that they've got support, that they are there to score a try. And Brian Kelly's another name that Webby always brings up, that and he did last time out, that he is a guy that is the energy, he is the gauge, and he's the absolute force that, you know, throws caution to the wind at times, and he just chances his arm, and with Jaden Campbell in there, makes him pretty formidable. But if you starve them of the ball, if you have a nice share of possession, equal share throughout the game, it's no good at the end of the game having the stats all go your way. It's got to be a consistent flow through the game so you can make it count, Marty.
Look, you know, it's still so frustrating thinking about that Melbourne result, and the concern I have is that when after the great start, you know, they outscored us 38-10, and that's twice within 6 weeks we've shipped 38 points. And so for a start, that door's got to be slammed shut because we weren't conceding that many last year. Do you agree?
I agree, but it also helps when you're a little more disciplined. You got people in terms of your full complement on the field.
Yeah, of course.
Some brain explosions there. You know, to think that you've had 2 guys off the field for 18 minutes, and well, not for 18 minutes, but you're down a man for 18 minutes, and 3 minutes of that overlapped. You were 2 men short, and still just before that last try at the end, there was only 8 points in the game against a very good Melbourne side. A lot to take from it, but you can't just keep saying the boys were good and they're in a situation where they could have won. You've got to execute, you've got to make the most of the opportunities and put your foot on the throat. And look, I know coming in, they trained really hard, they trained smart. There was this real confidence about that, what they were able to do and were able to, you know, execute, but it wasn't to be. So a lot of guys are hurting, but it's what they do, and bounce back this week, no doubt, against a side over there in Titans. And we know the support over there will be huge. Will be like another home crowd.
Now, you've been in this situation many times as a player as well. Games that you're expected to win. What's the key difference, just the psyche of it, where you go and like against Melbourne, okay, most people probably thought, hey, we're not expected to win this. Maybe it takes a bit of pressure off. Now, this game is one of those games where this Warriors side should go and clean this clock, shouldn't they? So what is the difference in the mindset of the players approaching this?
Well, what I like about Webby and what he's done last year and also this year is it's not emotive based or driven. They don't get up, they don't get down. They stay steady, they stay along their process and what they need to do to be the absolute best individually. So collectively as a team, they can execute and do what they need to do. It's not about him coming in and giving any given Sunday speech and then you jump up for one game and you have all this emotion, but then you get carried away with it. So it really is system-based and it is numbers-driven and really methodical in terms of what you need to do as an individual. But, you know, it has been a really hard competition. If you think about where we are as a club or as a team, the Warriors, you know, they're only 1 point off 6, 7 and 8.
Yeah, exactly right.
You know, and that's only half a win. But in saying that, still you can't let these opportunities fly beside. You know, there's been a lot of great opportunities to finish games off, and you know, when you've got if you can do it against the Dolphins with 11 players out, you've got to make the most of it when you've got the majority of your squad in. Monty
Betham, more than 100 games for the Warriors, captain of course, country as well, and sideline calling it for Sky Sport. Yeah, these are the games that you look back at the end of the season, and these are the ones you rue the most, aren't they? And it's no disrespect to any of these teams, but you know, this is a Titans side that's at the bottom. that in itself, though, is going to be motivation because they lost to the Tigers, mate, and they won't be happy about that. And I kind of feel that there's a little bit of rebound there. Player for player, we're better. But again, Mons, you've been in many of these situations where that counts for Jack, doesn't it?
Well, last week, I think player for player, the Warriors were better than the Melbourne Storm. And I think anyone in their right mind would say that. But unfortunately, it's not played on paper. It's what you do consistently throughout 80-minute period that puts you in a situation to win. And then when you get into that situation to win, that's when you've got to grab it by the horns and you've got to execute and you've got to be smart. Got to be at a full complement. But that's the thing, what they've got in that team, probably a little bit over the Warriors team, is out and out sheer pace. Normally when they've made 9 line breaks, they execute a lot more in terms of percentage wise. But so that means they've got to do what they did last week. The Warriors, they've got to set that line. They've got to be a lot better on that kick chase, and they've got to ensure that these guys don't get that open field running. It will be a dry track, which will suit both teams. But there's a lot of footwork, and I always know when you play against those expat Kiwis, well, not expat Kiwis, but those Kiwis that have gone away from home to ply their trade, the Kieran Forrens, the Aaron Clarks, the players like that, a bit of Keanu Kinney, who can just really haunt you, especially when you've got Stacey Jones, the Kiwi coach, on hand watching what unfolds
good point.
Underneath his eyes.
Well, I mean, I wrote that name down. I mean, Elias, and I hope I pronounced his name right, Katoa, who last week, both sides of the ball, attack and defence, was just an absolute monster, wasn't he? And I just so regret the fact he did it in a Storm shirt, Monty. Man.
Oh, look, I knew he was going to be great because he only played a handful of games of rugby league at club level, coming from predominantly a rugby background. But there is nothing he does not have. He is a big body. He can run. He can attack. And don't forget when he came down the other end against Adam Pompey and he stripped that ball to score a try. It was just the tackle, the set before where he saved a try up the other end. Look, he's a wonderful player. And I thought last year that he would have come on a little bit better than he did. But this year he has just gone forward in leaps and bounds. A wonderful player, complete athlete. And, with my Kiwi selection hat on, I'm going, hey, can we have a word to that young man? Because, he's been out there for Tonga, but like he's a proud Kiwi man who went to school here as well. So, look, there's a lot of good talent in and around the board, with internationals at the back end of this year. And look no further than Keanu Kinney this weekend, who's in some spectacular form, and knowing that he's got an opportunity in front of Stacey Jones at the back for this Titans side.
I'm old school with my rugby league, mate, and there's nothing more spectacular to me. I know that the halves get all the attention. I love my front rowers, but there's nothing more spectacular to me than a second rower that can do that. And I looked at Manly's, and again, I hope I pronounced his name right, Ola Kauotu, who last week was just unstoppable, mate. And having, I'm not criticising anyone, but I just feel, good God, when I saw Katoa and then I looked at that guy and just saw having one of those guys in your team, there's just a wrecking ball. It was like whenever Nelson got the ball, there were 6 guys on his back, mate. The big monster out of Monsters Inc. who just kind of plods along up the field. I felt like I was watching him. But it's just that physical size, and when you get the power with that, the pace with that, these are game breakers I'm talking here, aren't I?
Absolutely right. But, when we look after the Manly game, when they drew, the Warriors drew with Manly, and we had Adam Fanua-Blake going back and have a photo. I think Walks was there with them as well. And Adam was dwarfed. You talk about Hamole Olokoatu and Sipley and a lot of other guys in there. This is, the great Pack's doing it right now, a big man.